We live in a time where being tired, stressed, and sick has become the norm, and most people don't even question it. This show exists because I believe that health is not a luxury. It's foundational. You can't think clearly, lead effectively, or show up fully for the people who depend on you if your body is working against you. Every week on Healthy and Black, I sit down with physicians, scientists, executives, athletes, and thinkers who will challenge what you think you know about health and give you tools to feel better, think better, and perform better. I'm Dr. Jarik Conrad. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jarik Conrad. Welcome to Healthy and Black. So excited to have you here. What an important topic we are talking about today. Sugar. Sugar. Don't run, don't hang up, don't close your ears. You got to listen to this. This is important. And you're not just going to hear from me. You're going to hear from my good friend, Dr. Gordon Montgomery. Let me read a little bit about Dr. Montgomery's background for you, just to set the stage a little bit. Dr. Montgomery is a retired ophthalmologist who practiced in National City, California, just down the road here, for over 42 years. He got his Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry from the University of Cincinnati. I'm not going to say the date, Doc. I'm going to preserve your, I'm not going to say anything about the dates. He received his medical degree from Howard University, and he completed his residency from Home Phillips Hospital. And again, I don't skip the date. Although he should be proud.
I'm proud.
He's also completed a clinical fellowship in ophthalmology at Washington University back in St. Louis, one of my old stumping grounds. I did a summer course at Washington University in between, I guess it was sophomore and junior year of college. Now, one other really interesting thing, I could go on about Doc's background, and I'll let him share a little bit more background. But one really interesting thing is he is a living legend in medicine. Now, he actually got an award as a living legend in medicine. So I am honored to have you as my guest on the Healthy and Black podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Very happy to be here and have the opportunity to discuss a very important topic.
Terrific, terrific. Now, I got a hard job. Dr. Montgomery is deep. Like, he's got the science down and the technical pieces down. And, oftentimes I have to sit down and try and process it and understand what it is. So my job is to try to convert all this science into like an 8th grade level so that all of us can understand what's going on. So let's see how I do.
Not to get too technical.
We'll see how I do. Again, thank you so much for being here. And, this came about, you and I, we have these conversations about health related topics all the time. And we were talking and you're like, man, sugar. I don't think people really understand how devastating sugar is. And I told you I'd listened to an NPR subject a couple of years ago, NPR episode, and I was stuck in my driveway. I could not get out the car because I was just shocked at what I thought I knew about sugar, but I didn't know. So let's just jump in there. Tell us a little bit about what we need to know in general about sugar, and then we'll get into some details.
Well, I guess we can start with what is sugar. So sugar's molecule is a combination of both glucose and fructose, and both of those affect the body in different ways. Most of what we'll probably be talking today is about glucose. So sugar is taken into the body and is broken down to fructose and glucose absorbed into the blood. We should also mention, in terms of sugar, we should also mention processed carbohydrates. So processed carbohydrates would be your bread, your pasta, your rice, chips. So those are rapidly broken down in the stomach to sugar, basically.
Yeah. I think, Doc, let's pause there because we talk about this, oftentimes in the podcast, I've talked about processed foods and all that. And I warn people about when they hear this term carbohydrate now, everybody runs and they're thinking about the kind of carbohydrates that you're talking about. And I tell people all the time, all carbohydrates are not created equally. Yeah, comment on that for us.
Absolutely. So your greens, your cruciferous vegetables, all those are carbohydrates. Well, they're not processed carbohydrates, which are specially designed basically to make you want to eat more.
Yeah. Yeah. You notice he said specially designed. Like this is not happenstance. Like food companies pay to figure out the formula to make this happen, right?
They researchers. When I was at the University of Cincinnati, graduated in chemistry, they offered me a job to come work to try to refine the carbohydrates to make
You almost went to the dark side.
dark to the dark.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So I didn't want to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that people, because sometimes people hear and they walk away. He said carbohydrates are bad. Now he's talking about a class of carbohydrates that are very simple carbohydrates. They break down very easily into sugar in your body, as opposed to the complex carbohydrates that's in, the vegetables and all that we eat. I eat a high carb diet, for instance, because I eat all those vegetables, and it breaks down differently in the body over time, so you don't get that immediate sugar rush. But go on. So
Plus,
go
you
ahead.
have fiber in those vegetables too.
Plus, you have fiber, which is critical because most Americans don't get enough fiber.
Right.
So go ahead. So we got the fructose, and then we have the glucose. What else should we know about just the basics of what sugar is?
So let's just start from there. What does glucose do?
Okay.
Glucose is a source of energy. If we're eating an excess of glucose over what our calories demand for energy, then we got problems.
Yeah.
So I like to think of the problems that glucose causes into several categories. One is on the liver itself. And the second broad category would be what I call glycation. So glycation is defined as a spontaneous attachment of a glucose molecule to a protein.
Mm-hmm.
Delving into glycation a little bit further at this point. So like hemoglobin A1C, people have heard that. We use it in terms of talking about diabetes, pre-diabetes, but that's nothing but glycation of the hemoglobin molecule, or the protein portion of the red blood cell.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about hemoglobin A1C, we're talking about, well, how much glycation has occurred.
Okay. All right. And that's basic, most people know they get the A1C check. They don't necessarily know what it is.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right. Most doctors don't know what it is.
Gotcha.
In fact, I saw something from a lab the other day, and it said hemoglobin A1C was glycosylated. Well, that's a whole different subject, glycosylation, not glycation. So even the labs can get it wrong.
So the technical aspects. Now, for a lay person standpoint, I ingest the sugar, I digest the sugar, I eat the sugar, and I need a certain amount of sugar for energy, right?
Correct.
That's how we get our energy. But when I get more than what the body needs for energy, the body doesn't this bad things start to happen.
Absolutely. Right. And
So,
of course,
go ahead.
sugar, unfortunately, is addicting. So you eat some sugar, you want to eat more.
Let's talk more about that. Like, it's not just a figure of speech. Like, talk about how sugar is addictive.
Or there are really two ways that sugar becomes addictive. One is through the dopamine response. In other words, you eat sugar, you get a little release of dopamine in the brain, and that's a pleasure response.
Mm-hmm.
And the other way it's addicting is that there are actually bacteria in the gut, bad bacteria, and they can send a chemical to the brain and tell the brain, eat more sugar.
Yeah.
So you eat more sugar, that bacteria starts to reproduce more. You have more of that bacteria, then it says, eat more sugar. And it's a loop.
Or this vicious cycle. Now, I'll be honest with you. I know about the dopamine piece. I talk about that all the time. I didn't realize this bacteria piece that's sending that signal to the brain. So you're getting from two angles, your brain is getting attacked. Well, but it doesn't think it's getting attacked. It thinks it's getting pleasure.
Right.
So it's getting trained
Right.
to want more of this chemical.
Right. So if we could just eat a tiny bit of sugar, maybe we get away with it. But it unfortunately, it has the addicting effect.
So you got the way the body breaks down sugar, and then you got the people who are designing the products that contain sugar are trying to maximize that.
Right.
And so the average person, it's going to be a real struggle,
Right.
Trying to break free from this hold that sugar has on you.
You go back to that commercial of potato chips. Can you eat just one?
Yeah. The answer is no for too many people. Now, let's talk about something a little bit maybe sensitive as it relates to this. So, when I present and talk about nutrition, and I'll get to the sugar segment of my presentation, and what I use to describe to kind of introduce this section, I'll have I have a little girl who is, I don't know, is 3 or 4 years old or something like that, 2 or 3 maybe. And then I have this shady looking guy. He's got a long coat on, he's got a hat, and he's handing her a lolly. He's got a trench coat on, he's
Right.
handing her a lollipop.
Right.
And on the caption, the title of the slide, I put, "I'm your pusher man."
There you go.
And people get upset because they're like, well, wait a minute. Because my point here is that, listen, this is basically a drug. You talked about the dopamine receptors. That's what drugs do. They activate those dopamine receptors. It's a drug that most of us are introduced to by people who love us, by our parents. Grandparents are bad about this.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it's not starting at 3 or 4. It starts at birth because the baby food has sugar in it.
That is true.
I mean, you can get baby food that doesn't have sugar, but you have to watch and be careful. If the baby seems to be eating a lot, and that's what makes the parent happy, baby's eating and so forth, but he might be eating because he likes the sugar.
Yeah. Already addicted. So this is where this culture, cost, and convenience comes into play. A lot of the cheap stuff, the stuff that's convenient and easy to get to feed our babies, we end up going for that, particularly in communities like the one I grew up in, challenged communities that don't have a whole lot of fresh fruits and vegetables, because ideally you'd make your own baby food, right? And you know exactly what was in it. You wouldn't have to worry about that. But that's another challenge.
Of
Growing
course, in the old days, this is way before you were born. Mothers used to chew the food for the baby and then give the baby the chewed food from their mouths. And actually, that was much more healthy than getting it out of a bottle.
Which is what many animals still do in the animal kingdom.
There we go.
You see that all the time. So we forget we're just animals.
Yeah.
So this starts early on. Before we've said our first word, before we have taken our first step, many of us are already addicted to sugar.
There we go.
And then it's reinforced. Even you go to some doctor's offices. When I was young, they still used to do this when I was young. They give you a lollipop or something. You do well, you get a shot or something like that.
Exactly.
Then you got the commercialization of Halloween. And you go, I get as much candy as you can. Like,
Right.
we have a whole system built on keeping our kids and then ultimately our adults hooked on sugar.
Yeah. Yes. And our social gatherings, family gatherings is usually around some type of sugar. I mean, we in our family used to love peach cobbler.
Yeah. My mother used to make a mean peach cobbler.
That's right.
So yeah,
Sweet potatoes, which are healthy for you, but by the time we added brown sugar and this, that, and the other, they were awful good, but
right. You don't taste the sweet potatoes no more.
don't worry.
It's all this other stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about how insidious this thing is. Why is it that you look on the food label and, you see all these OUS, right? You see all these different kinds of sugar. Like, why is there 20 types of sugar listed on a box of crackers or something?
I think that, well, there are two stories here. Sometimes people use a different type of sugar thinking that if we use this type of sugar, when I say that, like honey, that's going to be healthier. But sugar is basically, whether it's honey or not, it's basically fructose and glucose. Now, honey might have a slightly higher content of, I've forgotten, higher fructose or higher, I think it's higher fructose than glucose.
Okay.
Agave syrup definitely has a higher fructose, but it's all sugar, glucose and fructose.
Yeah. So now that we've scared everybody about sugar, and we only talked a little bit about some of the damage, we'll talk a little bit more about some more of the damage on your body. But we've scared everybody now a little bit about what sugar is. Fruit has sugar. So should we tell people stop eating fruit because it's got sugar?
Well, fruit also has fiber. So And fruit is not a high concentration of sugar. Like if you eat fruit juice, then that is going to be a higher concentration of sugar. But if you eat the fruit itself, like an apple, you're going to get some sugar. But you have the fiber, which delays some of the absorption of sugar, and plus you have the health benefits of the whole, the vitamins and so forth that are in the apple besides the sugar.
Yeah. So it's the reductionist attitude that we have. We'll learn about one chemical, one nutrient, one vitamin, one something, and we try to isolate it and get a whole lot of it, and we mess up nature's balance in that way. So
Right.
if you're gonna eat an orange, you could eat maybe 1 or 2 oranges, right? And that's it. But if you go drink a cup of orange juice, you probably need 10 oranges
There
to
you
get
go.
a nice nature
Right.
didn't intend for you to have 10 oranges, especially not 10 oranges without the fiber and without all those other things.
They're going to take all the good stuff out of it.
That's right. That's right. It's fascinating. So I just wanted to put an alert there because again, just like the carbohydrates, sometimes there's misinformation and people hear, oh, sugar is bad, fruit has sugar, stay away from fruit. It's really the processing. When it's been touched, when it's been manufactured, when it's been processed, when it's been isolated, when it's been altered in some way, that's when we start to introduce trouble. But
Of
talk
course,
a little bit more. Oh, go ahead.
you can overdo fruit, of course.
True.
If
True.
you eat too much, you'll start to have some negative side effects. But most people don't eat that much fruit.
Most people don't. They're not going to eat that much fruit. Now you're an ophthalmologist. Let's talk about, some of the I don't think a lot of people have any idea the link between sugar and eye health. Can you talk about that?
So sugar, again, let's go back to the concept of glycation before we start there.
Yeah.
So our red blood cells becomes glycated. When that happens, it becomes what we call a little bit sticky. So maybe instead of having one red blood cell by itself, you have 5 or 6 clumped together.
Yeah.
So when the red blood cell goes through capillaries are very thin blood vessels. They're only one red blood cell thick. So if you're trying to force something that's 5 or 6 red blood cells through something that's only supposed to be one, the capillary breaks down.
That ain't happening.
Right. So that's a problem. But also the glycated hemoglobin is also inflammatory, and that causes a whole set of problems.
Yeah.
But going back to the eyes specifically, sugar itself can cause damage to something called the parasite cells. So parasite cells or support cells, they surround the blood vessel or the capillary, should I say. So if you weaken the support mechanism, the capillary starts to break down. So if the capillary breaks down, you start to get bleeding and you start to get swelling in the eye from the leaky blood vessel. And the eye starts to lose some of its blood supply. Then it starts to bleed. It starts to try to develop abnormal blood vessels, the compensatory mechanism. They bleed. Next thing you know, there's blindness.
Wow. Sugar
I'll start with the sugar.
process. And I don't think most people think about that. They don't understand that. And by the time they find out about that, the damage is already done, right? A lot of
Right.
people are already walking around with damage because of that, but they have no clue that they have this damage.
Absolutely. And when I see a patient in the office, in the olden days, I could only tell the patient if there's a problem starting. You may not notice it because it hasn't affected your vision yet, but I see it. It's starting to happen. You got to really pay attention to your sugar. But it was vague. People said, okay, I got something, and they don't really know what it is. They're just, what's that doctor know anyway?
Yeah.
But later, as technology got better, I could take pictures of the eye. And then I could show the patient the picture of some bleeding starting. Again, it may not be affecting vision yet, but it's a start. And once the patient could see this is a reality, then it was much easier for them to say, yeah, I need to do something about my sugar.
Yeah. So they would at least try.
Yes.
And unfortunately, you can tell me what your experience is, but most doctors I talk to, most medical doctors I talk to say, even when they show them that, you get some people who are motivated enough to make a change. You get a lot of people who want to make the change, But then there's some people who just stay stuck. They're not able to execute a real change.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's let's stay on there for a minute, Doc. I've been working a lot. I'm developing this conscious health app, and I've been working a lot about what I'm calling a neurometabolic trap. In that, you have issues going on with your body, like insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome, all the things that are going to, well, that affects, for some of the reasons you just talked about, that sugar does, but that starts to affect your brain in terms of how you process information, the different chemicals and hormones in your brain starts to affect your executive functioning, your motivation. And you can see how somebody like that might not want to get up in the morning ready to go to the gym. Somebody like that might not invest in, eating healthy and all that. And because of that, they don't do it, or they start and they can't sustain it again because they just don't have all their faculties. And
right.
so it's part of that whole cycle that we talked about.
Right.
Is that, tell
Going
me more about that.
going back to the concept of parasites and sugar causing damage to the parasites. Well, in the brain, in the capillary structure of the brain, there are parasites that support that structure. So if the parasites start to get damaged by sugar, then the what we call the blood-brain barrier starts to break down. And if that happens, then components that are in the blood that don't belong in the brain start to leak through the blood vessels and go into the brain. And that causes diminished functioning of the brain.
So you end up with these toxins and
Right.
stuff that's not, the brain can't compensate.
Even bacteria is supposed to be, that might be in the blood. It's supposed to be filtered, not go through the blood-brain barrier, but it gets into the brain.
Yeah.
And that will, one of the antibacterial agents in the brain is amyloid. So you can imagine if this bacteria is going into the brain and the brain is increasing amyloid production, where's that amyloid production going to, what harm is that going to cause? We know that causes dementia.
So you've talked about issues with the brain. We know about kidney disease. We talked about Alzheimer's. You start to think about all of our organs. Talk about the liver. Surely sugar don't have nothing to do with the liver, right?
Well, not directly, but if you're eating a lot of sugar, one, if you're insulin resistant and producing more insulin, or you're just eating a lot of sugar and your body's naturally producing more insulin, that chronic insulin will have an effect on the liver. And the effect that it has on the liver, that it makes the liver make more fat. And by making more fat, it's releasing what we call VLDL particles, which is a preliminary particle to the LDL particle. So it's releasing more of these particles. You have more LDL particles. And we know the number of LDL particles is a risk factor for heart disease.
That's right.
The more LDL particles, the more risk for heart disease. Of course, you get more particles then because you're eating more sugar, because you're eating a chronically elevated insulin.
So,
If we use examples, I think we talking about the other day, if you eat breakfast full of instant oatmeal, and maybe some bread with jam on it and some coffee with sugar, you're going to get a pretty good insulin spike because you got a sugar spike. And then you go mid-morning, you eat a donut. There we go, insulin up again. Then you eat lunch with some chips and some bread and sandwiches. There we go, insulin up again. Then we eat a late afternoon snack, some chips. There we go, insulin up again.
Oh, I need some energy to get me back.
Yep. Then we eat dinner. Then we have, some rice, some pasta, or whatever. There we go, insulin up again. So insulin is being chronically elevated throughout the day. It might not show up as diabetes because you've produced enough insulin not to have a high blood sugar, but you produce enough insulin to have an effect on the liver. And that effect is going to cause you to produce more, ultimately, LDL fibers. Then we didn't talk about, what we can talk about is that sugar will glycate those LDL particles. So, in other words, the sugar spontaneously attaches to the protein portion of that particle. That particle is basically cholesterol and triglycerides surrounded by a protein. So cholesterol and triglycerides are fast. They don't travel through the water environment of the bloodstream. So the body puts a protein around them. So that protein can also be attacked by the sugar molecule or glycated. And once that happens, they become oxidized. And once the oxidation occurs, they're inflammatory. Now you have an inflammatory particle attacking basically your arteries throughout the body, but also in the heart.
Yep.
There we go, the start of plaque formation.
So none of our organs get by, right? You talk about the heart piece. What about the skin? Did the sugar affect the skin that we know of?
Absolutely. So there's a protein in what we call the extracellular space. That's basically collagen and elastin. So sugar can attack those proteins or attach to those proteins. And when that happens, cross-linking occurs and basically fibrosis. So that as the fibrosis develops, you'll get skin wrinkling. If you get that fibrosis around the heart and lungs, you're going to have heart disease. Around the kidney disease is going to contribute to hypertension. It's said that we call that process AGES, AGES. But it's said that if you had everything was perfect in your body, you had no diabetes, you have no dementia, no cancer, everything was perfect in your body, your lifespan would be limited to 115 to maybe 120 years because of the fibrosis that starts to occur around the heart and lungs. And that's directly from sugar. Now, that's going to happen even with lower levels of sugar. We can't escape that. But with your higher levels, it's going to happen much quicker. You'll see diabetics. They'll have skin wrinkling much earlier in life than a normal person.
Wow. So not only do you want to avoid sugar to feel young and to live longer, you want to avoid sugar to look younger.
Or look a little younger. Yeah.
Which is why you look like you do. When I read these dates around here, people wouldn't believe. So now we understand how you're able to stay looking so young and fit.
Oh, thank you. But I wish I had started this a lot earlier or understood these things a lot earlier in life. I really only understood them for the last 2 or 3 years. But if I started early, I'd be in a lot better shape.
We should be teaching kids this, and we don't teach. You know better than I. Having gone to medical school, we just started bringing in the whole concept of nutrition into medical school. I had a call today with an organization. It was Eastern Virginia Medical School, I think it's, and they are starting to take this very seriously with their doctors. So this is fascinating.
Historically, as physicians, we're taught to identify disease and treat disease. And it's only more lately that we started to say, well, what's some precursors that cause disease? Let's start earlier with those precursors.
It's fascinating.
That's where your nutrition will come in.
We know more about this stuff than we ever did. We have more science than we ever did. We do have medical schools starting to talk about prevention and some of this. And it's fascinating that with all the information, with all the technology, with all the advancement in medications and all that stuff, the GLP-1, all this stuff, but these numbers are getting worse. I mean, people are still getting diabetes, and then you got, half of the population has pre-diabetes or diabetes. Most of them don't know it.
Right.
It's happening at younger and younger ages. At some point, the public has to say something about the way we're living and the things that we're eating is destructive in a very profound way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, hopefully we can help to get that
out of the thought pattern of treating disease to the thought pattern, let's not get the disease in the first place.
That's right. It's hard to get people's attention, especially when we're starting early. And when sometimes, go ahead.
In the medical profession, we tend to be a little slow to change. Probably is different now, but I had an old professor tell me once it took 30 years basically for a concept to come out to be basically accepted and used in the medical profession. Now it might be a little bit better because we have the internet and better ways of information being disseminated. But
I would imagine, I'm sure it's faster than 30 years, but we're still struggling. I mean, I have this concept I've been talking about for at least the past 5 years that, technology is advancing just incredibly rapidly. But our understanding, human evolution, our ability to process information, we still got the amygdala acting like it did back in the African savannas. We're still fight or flight or freeze or fawn in many ways. So we haven't developed the skills yet to be able to responsibly manage the technology that we're creating, or to responsibly implement, this information that we're finding out about chronic health issues. Like half of this stuff could be wiped away within a very short period of time with the information we already know.
The information, and we don't need some of these more advanced chemicals and so forth to do that. We just need basic common sense. We just basic knowledge about our bodies.
It's fascinating. That's what we got to get. I'm working hard in conscious health to get in here to figure out how we can flip that switch to help people not only understand, but to be able to more effectively execute behavior change, given that understanding. So we're working hard at it.
I think that's really super important. And talking about sugar, for example, it's not easy to say, well, I'm going to stop sugar. Again, it's an addiction, and one needs to treat it as an addiction, and all the kind of help support groups or people like yourself who are doing things and to educate and to bring people together and support them in that pathway, that the better it is, because it just doesn't happen. Well, some people have the willpower, but you need, basically, most people need more support.
It's deeper than willpower for most people. And I think we have to grow up because we joke about this stuff too much. Like we joke about the fact that we're addicted to sweets. We joke about the fact that, oh, I can't operate without my coffee. I don't even say hi to me without it's an addiction.
Right.
It's not cute. Why are we celebrating and laughing and joking just to be in the tribe,
Right.
just to fit into the culture? We make these kind of, it's time to grow up and be serious and responsible and understand the impact we're having on kids.
I remember reading an article, a business article. This is about, I don't know, 15, maybe 20 years ago. And the title of the article was Only Legalized Drug Dealer in the U.S. And this is before marijuana was legalized. And basically they're talking about Starbucks. Because Starbucks takes sugar and a high level of caffeine, and they put them together, and basically there's an addiction.
Like, listen, anytime it's
I should have invested in Starbucks.
right. Look, it's an addiction anytime you go to cold weather places and it's -10 outside and people are standing in line and the line is long and they're standing there freezing waiting that line. That's an addiction, right?
Right.
It's no different than the people that's going out to smoking cigarettes in that cold. It's an addiction, and we need to be serious about it and start to figure out.
It's not a laughing matter. No,
it's not a laughing matter, particularly as we age. Let me ask you this: if I am somebody, get your perspective on this. If I'm somebody who I'm 50 years old, I really haven't been eating well. I've been eating, I eat a lot of desserts. I haven't been taking care of myself. Maybe I had a bad exam with the doctor and the doctor said, hey, I get a change. Or maybe I just feel tired. I feel tired. I'm overweight. I'm tired of this stuff. I want to make a change. Is it too late? If I've been eating sugar all this time,
oh, heavens no.
Is the effects, is it already past? What can I do?
It's a difficult step, and I think you need all the support that you can do. Like if you're in a family, you need together as a family to say, this is harmful in our lives. What can we do to stop it? And maybe as a first step, just say, I'm not going to buy any more desserts from the grocery store. Yeah. Make the first step.
Yeah,
and
just don't
take little steps.
Yeah.
Keep building on it, though.
In terms of the body, can I repair some of the damage sugar has done? Can I detox off of sugar? Is it, I can only slow down, I can only halt, I can only not damage it more? What can I do if I've already probably beat myself up with this stuff?
Well, in addition to the nutrition components that we talked about, exercise, you got to put exercise in there.
Yeah.
Just walking is a great exercise. and what we call zone 2 walking, which is a very slightly elevated heart rate. Well, that will burn both glycogen and fat.
Yeah. So that's an easy start.
That's an easy start.
Most
And
people-
as you just burn some of that fat, so fat, I don't want to get too technical, but there's a chemical called GLUT4 that basically comes from, that basically helps insulin, works with insulin to brings glucose into the cell. So if you have too much, if GLUT4 is not working properly, you basically don't have insulin resistance.
That's right.
So GLUT4 stops working properly when you have diglycerides, which is a breakdown from triglycerides, which can be, glucose can build up to triglycerides, or fat can break down to diglycerides, either direction.
Yeah.
Once you start to produce diglycerides, you start to interfere with the GLUT4, or you start to basically develop insulin resistance, which is then causing the high insulin levels.
So again, there's science behind. We know exactly what exercise does. We know exactly what good nutrition does. We don't have to guess at what the human body was designed to do. We don't have to guess at what the human body was designed to eat. We can see the impact of the stuff that we eat on the body. It's not theoretical. This is very observable, and you can do something about it. You can change it, right? Our goal would be to reverse this vicious cycle and to create a virtuous cycle. Because you talked about exercise, and we know that exercise has an impact on the chemicals in the brain as well.
Absolutely.
Positive.
Right.
So you start a different cycle because you have those brain chemicals. You're more likely to make better decisions as a result, more likely to be more motivated. And then you start something, you're more likely to finish it. And then you do that, you feel better. And
You start to build in success.
that's right. That's right. So it's just, as always, a lot of people self-sabotage because they want to go from 0 to 10 right away. And not everybody is wired that way. And that is fine, right? There's a whole system designed to exploit you. You got to show some resistance, and you have to take that first step.
Right.
And so let's talk about this. You mentioned exercise. It doesn't have to be you go run a marathon. Move for 30 minutes a day. Just move.
Yeah. Basically, I would say do an exercise you like. Because
Yeah.
the most important thing is consistency,
Yeah.
not something you're going to start and stop.
That's right.
You know, like
That's
if you like playing basketball, play basketball 3 times a week. I mean, that'll be great for you.
That's right.
If you like walking in nature, you know, get off the treadmill and go in nature and walk. Just find something that you like. Like jumping rope, you know, with the kids, jump rope with the kids. Maybe you shouldn't do that. You might hurt yourself.
No, I can't do it now with this knee. But the other day I was I'm not a treadmill person or an elliptical. I don't like standing in one spot. I'd rather go out in nature and move.
Right.
However, the other day I said, I gotta get me 30 minutes in on this elliptical machine. And I popped in a master class and listened to what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was
Okay.
talking about
He's fantastic.
thinking. And so he's talking about stuff that's right up my alley. And I'm listening to the master class. I'm on the elliptical. I don't even realize I'm on the elliptical. I look up, it's 30 minutes
Right.
gone.
There you go.
And so I've fed my body, I've fed my mind at the same time. And
Right.
and I had much energy. I was, and I learned something new. I want to talk to my wife about this, about that. He said something I always say, blah, blah, blah. So,
Right.
so we got to find ways, right? Some
Gotta
people
make the-
listen to music.
Got to make the commitment and find ways.
You got to figure it out.
First is this: is say I'm going to do whatever, half hour, 3 days a week to start with, and then once you say this is what you need, then you got to look at your schedule and find out, how you can fit that in. Got to work with your family, especially like a young mother who's just super busy, trying to find time. But it can be done, but you have to work with it.
Yeah. Hey, look, and she's getting a lot of exercise anyway, chasing those kids.
There you go.
But I find when I'm on the road, I think I've talked about this in podcast episodes in the past. When I'm busy, sometimes I'm more committed to taking care of myself and working out because I don't want to miss it. So when I travel, and there's always a hotel gym
Right.
when I go, and I'm typically one of the only people in that hotel gym. And when I don't have access to the gym, I don't have access to a gym, I'll get on the floor. I'll do 100 push-ups. So when I'm really working out well, I'll do 200 push-ups. So you can do something. You can do some squats. You can do some crunches. You can do some lunges. You can do some very low impact things right in your home. And if you just commit, look, even if I don't make it my schedule, I wanted to work out today at 10, but I didn't make it. Don't say forget it.
Right.
Before you go to sleep, do some lunges or something.
There you go.
Do something just to say, I checked the box. I was
Or
happy.
you could take right. You could take maybe 5 minutes several times a day, 3, 4 times a day, and run up and down stairs at your work.
Yep. You got 30 minutes just like that. Yeah.
And you just have to be creative and just think about
Yeah.
what you need to do and how you can incorporate it.
Parking, not close to the door. So you got to
Right.
walk to the entrance of something,
Yeah.
taking the stairs instead of elevators and escalators. It's no magic. You don't have to go out and get somebody's, workout exercise and they got the before and after and the person is all cut up and it's AI generated or they're taking steroids or whatever.
Yeah.
Don't worry about all that stuff.
What about your health, not how you look?
Because what's going on inside is way more important. And you got to get that stuff right before you start seeing what's happening on the outside. And I think Doc, I think for a lot of people, they start working out, they don't see results immediately, and they feel like, this is not helping. You have no idea what's happening inside your body. Results are happening, but it's going to happen there before you start seeing it.
And that brings up the topic, perhaps, of the book that I wrote, which is Increasing the Healthspan.
Let's talk about that. Now, again, this is pretty thick. This is light reading for Dr. Montgomery. I had to work on this.
Yes, it is something that you can't read from cover to cover in one setting.
Right.
But I changed it around. I made some summaries on each chapter. So one could start with the summaries and then go deep as you want.
I think that's good.
It can also be used as a reference book too.
And I joke that there are some technical things here, but I think you do a great job of setting the context and just helping people. What I got most about it was helping people understand the association, how this thing is related to this thing is related to this thing. Because oftentimes we think about these health things in isolation. Nothing in the body is happening in isolation.
Nothing. Absolutely. You're a very good observation. All interrelated.
It's all interrelated, and it comes out very clearly in this book. And listen, the idea is not to be perfect. And I hear people, we all got to die of something. That's a cop-out to me. There are some options here of ways that we can be healthier. We can have a more fulfilling life. We can be there for our relatives. There's some options here. There's some choices that we can make if we recognize this addiction and commit to breaking it.
And it's how you want to live your life and how you want to. Right now, I'm going into my 80s, and I'm still dancing. I'm still hiking. I'm still enjoying life. So much better than I know people are just sitting around, have aches and pains and just watching TV. I mean, you don't want, it's not extending life itself. It's making yourself healthy while you're on this earth so you can enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a great point, because statistically, whatever happens to the average human age and all that, none of those matter from an age. It's the quality of life that matters the most. If we can get you another 10 years, but you can't do anything and you're hyped up, overdose with
medicines to keep you alive,
15 different kind of medications, you're here, but what kind of impact are you making? What you can't do anything with your family. This is all about quality of life.
Absolutely. And what you want for yourself.
Perfect. I think that's probably a good place to kind of start to wrap up our conversation, has there anything we didn't speak necessarily about specifically the Black community? I talk a lot, obviously, on this show about that, but we know that we're more than 24% likely than the average adult to have diabetes. We die 78% more often than the US population in general for diabetes. We're more than twice as likely to have kidney disease as a result of diabetes, and we're less likely to go get our exams on a regular basis. So I can go down a list of statistics about why this is so important. It's important for everybody, but it's absolutely important for us,
Yeah.
given how
What do you
this
talk about the factor of the fact that sugar and processed carbohydrates, they're cheaper.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
at McDonald's is easy.
yeah.
You don't have to spend time fixing it. It's cheap. Not anymore. It's not cheap. It's not as expensive as some of the other ones.
Relatively.
You're right.
Sure. Yeah, but it goes back to this culture,
Right.
cost, and convenience. Let me say one thing that I was really shocked about. I took during the pandemic, I took a course on plant-based nutrition. I knew I was one of those people who early on, I knew the pandemic was going to be long. And so I bought a whole lot of cooking equipment and I took a course and I was cooking every night. We cooked every night for 2 years. We didn't eat at a restaurant. We didn't do takeout. I cooked every night for 2 straight years during the pandemic. And some of it was gourmet stuff.
You didn't invite me.
With this class, we had a social distance. But some of it was gourmet stuff.
I don't want to ask.
I was paranoid though. Even with a mask, I was like, don't bring him close to my street. I mean, I was
Sorry.
but what I was shocked at, I had to adjust so many of the recipes because of salt and because of sugar. I mean, the salt, they'd have you put something in beforehand. They had to put it in while it was cooking, and they had to try to put it again and get at the end. And the sugar to make, I was making, my wife and I, she made some of the cakes as well. We were making like birthday cakes for our birthdays. And, we did everything. We were making breads to take. We were doing everything. And just the amount of sugar that would go into one dessert kind of thing was shocking to me. And I don't have a sweet tooth. And I'm looking at this and my stomach is hurting just looking at how much sugar goes into this stuff.
I was addicted to sugar. I'm not going to say that I wasn't. But once I learned to really go without sugar, when I eat sugar now, man, I can eat a little bit, but don't give me a birthday cake. No, man, I get sick over it.
Yeah. I'm the same way. People,
You lose your taste for it.
You lose it. Your body is like, what is this? I don't know what this is. We don't want it. We don't want it. The body is just, it's incredible how our bodies try to save us from ourselves. And we, we do things now. We'll take some medication for heartburn and for all this stuff before we even get the heartburn. We'll take it so that we can eat the bad stuff that causes those.
Right, there you go. In the first place.
That's fascinating to me. I'm not doing that, man. If my body is trying to tell me that I don't need that, then I'm going to try to leave it alone.
Yeah, nature has given us a terrific body, full of wisdom. Basically, we just need to follow its wisdom.
That's right. So sugar, the bittersweet truth about sugar. Dr. Montgomery, thank you so much for joining me. I knew it'd be a fantastic, conversation. I know some people are listening and they're like, man, what do I do with this stuff that I have at home in my pantry now? Because I don't want it anymore. Right. At least I hope that's what people are saying. And I really appreciate your time. And, I always
thank you for having me. It's been fun. I've enjoyed it. Yeah. Yes.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And Dr. Montgomery's book, Increasing Healthspan, Midlife Choices for Senior Health. Here's the cover of it. Pick it up on Amazon. For people who are listening to this, who are pre-diabetic or diabetic, for a short time only, I do have a window where we're testing out the Conscious Health app. I'm taking a handful of people and I'll give you free access to the app. We're gearing up for our clinical trial that's coming up. And we have a few people just testing the app, making sure everything is tight before our trial. So contact me at Jarik at conscioushealth.com. Or for those who are listening to this on YouTube, send me a reply, DM me, let me know if this is something that you're interested in. Thank you again for tuning in to this episode of Healthy and Black. Please reach out if you have ideas about topics that you would like to hear. Reach out to me, DM me, email me, contact me in some way. And until the next time we talk, don't let culture, cost, or convenience ruin your health. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Take care, Dr. Montgomery.
Thank you. Will do.
Thank you for spending this time with us on Healthy and Black. If today's conversation landed for you, share it with at least one person in your life who needs to hear it. And if you're ready to go deeper, to do the personal work required to feel better, think better, and perform better, I work with high-achieving professionals through my coaching practice. You can learn more and get started at jarikconrad.com. I'm Dr. Jarik Conrad. Keep investing in yourself. And remember, don't let culture, cost, or convenience ruin your health. Until next time.